Matty Johns.
Mark Bouris.
You and your brother were mad.
It was better than Lego.
I wasn't a natural player in any way, shape or form. To play well and compete against those guys, I had to be on mentally. That becomes part of the algorithm of your life. If you're burning the candle at both ends, you're going to hit the wall really quick. It was seriously scary.
Have you heard from the man who won't die, the immortal?
Oh,
Our uncle,
Andrew Johns?
Andrew Johns.
No, I haven't.
Mate, what's going on?
We're not even in the same library, let alone the same page. Growing up, we slept in the same room, same school, of course, and then we have the same profession, this high-profile profession. We're playing, first grade NRL. We played for New South Wales together, for Australia together. I think we're just fucking sick of each other.
Matty Johns.
Mark Bouris.
Did I sound like your father then? Matthew?
No, it's usually I hear, Andrew, Matthew.
Oh, it goes like that, does it?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to park that. We're going to come back to that bit.
Okay.
Matty Johns, welcome to Straight Talk, mate.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thank
so
you.
I like the way you're rocking that Scotch and Soda T-shirt, mate.
Mate, always good to cross-promote, Mark.
I could see it.
Yeah.
But no, and what I just know, and I have to ask you this, because
Yep.
look at the size of your fucking guns. And I've always noticed that your forearms are huge. I don't know what the fuck you do. I mean, do you what sort of gym workout you do?
Well,
I'm serious now. What do you do in terms of gym work?
I have actually scaled back a bit, Mark. So these days it's mainly body weight stuff. I don't
Like
do
chin-ups, push-ups?
Yeah, chin-ups and push-ups and that sort of stuff. The old Des Hasler regime back in the day. Dips and that sort of. But you know what it is, Mark? I've found, and it was interesting. I remember years ago when I was working with the Melbourne Storm, Alex Corvo, who trained the Melbourne Storm, it was very interesting how he used to train the younger players. He used to get them high reps, lots of sets when they were younger, when they first got them to the club. And I asked him why, and he said, muscle memory. He said, I want to build almost like a career base. And he said, once I can do that, players can come back later to pre-season. And it was really interesting. Sometimes you watch even guys like Cooper Cronk early in their careers, Greg Inglis and different guys, they'd come back carrying a little bit of timber, but 2 weeks of training and they're starting to rip up. And, I've been sort of, through professional sport training since, that sort of stuff since I've been about 17, Mark. So I sort of find now that, I can train 3 days a week and still stay in shape because of that muscle memory stuff.
That's interesting because you're around Freddie's age. You're about 52, 53,
yeah, 52,
around that territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in the sort of second part of your lifespan.
Yeah.
How important is it? How important is health to you now? Is it a big deal? And do you research this shit? And in terms of what you eat, I mean, you drink. I mean, you obviously have a drink, but how often you drink?
Yeah.
Because I do. I mean, you and your brother were mad.
Yeah,
I mean, in the old days, I'll go back a bit.
Yeah.
Have you sort of give yourself an uppercut and sort of, as you sort of starting to look at, you got your two boys coming through now that they're playing footy and they're doing stuff with you. And and Trisha's, you've got to keep your family together. You've got to stay around. You're the rock. How important do you take that?
Yeah, I do. I probably two parts to that. Firstly, I live almost like two lives. Monday to Friday, Matt's very different to Friday to Sunday, Matt. So Monday to Friday, Matt trains, watches what he eats, all that sort of stuff.
Sleep properly.
Perfect husband.
Yeah. Well, we knew that.
Friday to Sunday, sort of, eat whatever I want, drink too much. It's a little bit like Mark having the heater on in one corner and the air conditioner in the other, and you just find out who wins the fight. The air conditioner wins, I'll be still around in 10 years. Right. If the heater wins, pray for me.
What's drink too much mean, though? You're not fucking walking around blind all weekend. You're not starting 11 o'clock where you're mowing the lawn or something.
No.
Drink too much relative to what you think you should be in terms of a 53-year-old.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, coming through, and a lot of it's cultural, Mark.
Yeah,
with my drinking, coming from the Hunter Valley. My dad was a coal miner, grandfather, great grandfather. Generally that sort of. It gets passed through. I remain sort of disciplined on what I drink. I don't drink as much beer these days. I drink sort of, a bit of gin or a little bit of vodka. Although the concern about vodka is that it's a very fine line between being upright and horizontal. I say when you drink beer, it's like a 747 taking off. When you get there with the vodka, it's like space shuttle.
I know, because it catches you, bang.
It does.
Uzo used to do that to me, and I did it so many times when I was younger. I can't fucking even smell the stuff now. I can't even stand the smell of it, because I have this sort of memory. You talk about muscle memory. I got muscle memory in my gut and my brain. Smell vodka, Uzo, and I feel sick immediately. Yeah. That's not bad for a Greek. So I want to just touch on something you said. Your grandfather, I think. Yep. Your father.
Yes.
Beyond, there's like 4 generations or 3 generations before you. You all grew up in Cessnock.
Yes. Well, my mother's side of the family originally from Mudgee. They moved to Cessnock. My father's side of the family come from Curry, which is just sort of down the road, which is Cessnock and Curry. It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. And Dad he crossed the Iron Wall and went into Cessnock when he met Mum. And then, I can still walk down the main street of Curry and people say, there's that fucking arsehole from Cessnock.
Serious?
Yeah, I still get it.
They're still tribal.
Yeah, still very tribal up there. Amongst in the coal fields, and you get or Curry's got an amazing history. It's Welsh Protestant town. A lot of old Welsh miners went there. So my dad's side of the family is Welsh. Mum's side of the family are Irish.
But that's. I mean, and I saw you did play for Wales, didn't you? Did you play for Wales? Or you were going to?
You wouldn't believe it. So Wales reached out, and when I'd sort of finished getting towards the end of my career, and they weren't picking me for Australia anymore. Not that I'd pick me a lot, but anyway. And they said, "Oh, would you be interested in playing for Wales?" And I went, "Oh, let me just think about it." And I come back and I said, "Look, I'd like to. I'm really flattered by it, but I just feel if I do that, it almost undermines what you did by playing for Australia." That makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, mate sent me a thing from one of the local newspapers there, and they were into me saying I disrespected the Welsh people. I was like, fuck man, I've never been to Wales. But of course, myself and Andrew, we're the first generation of Johnsons not to go down a pit, down a coal mine.
Really? And was that a conscious decision by your mum or your dad?
It was more Dad, because, I mean, when you're coming through as a young guy, you don't think about, I never looked at football as a professional sport. I just always wanted to play it. And if I was able to play one of the big Sydney clubs, all the better, pre-Newcastle Knights days. And then I found out later on that they paid you for playing. I was like, fuck, wow, how good is that? But of course, back in the day, you still had to, rugby league, although it was professional, really in essence, it was semi-professional. And you're playing, you're training, you're playing, but you need to have a 9-to-5 job or
a sponsor.
That's right, a sponsor.
Rothmans or someone like that.
Or as you basically used to do, Sellerman at East Leeds Club. And so for me, I was like, I'm going to be a coal miner.
Yeah. And you did?
I know I wanted to be. Because all my mates were going to coal mining. Up there, you either work at the aluminium smelter, or you would do a labouring job, or you go down the coal mines. And for me, I go down the coal mines, pays better. And the old man, when I was in about year 10, took me down the coal mine, and I said, I'm not going to be a coal miner anymore. It was seriously scary.
Why? You mean as in terms of claustrophobia, or?
Oh, just, it was amazing, going so far underground, and like they're bolting the roofs and setting things off and explosives and whatnot, and the whole joint shaking. And even my old man, like you got to be careful and you don't drill through a coal seam. I remember down there once, and this is a long time ago, but the old man had literally, had the hard hat on with the light at the top of the roof, and he's just walking along, and they've got this big miner just churning, coming behind him, and he's got to work out if it's the end of a coal seam. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a human, my old man, judging. He's got almost the lives of all these people around him. And I just thought, no, this is not really for me.
So, but what does that tell you about your father?
Yeah, the old man was a very, very hard-working, disciplined man. And the other about him too, Mark, he had me when he was about 18 or 19. And I oftentimes think about, like, Dad used to work dog watch mainly down the coal mine.
Which means?
Your shift starts at midnight and you finish at 8 in the morning. So I could never always work out why Dad was always in a bad mood on a Sunday. And the reason was, of course, midnight that night he starts his working week. And it's not like a working week like myself and you, Mark. you're going down a dark hole. And so, and it was funny, like the camaraderie down there amongst all the blokes is not dissimilar to a rugby league side. When the old man had, numerous accidents down there and eventually they wouldn't let him go underground. And I thought to myself, God, what a relief for the old man. And for the first month it was. But then he was terribly depressed, missed the camaraderie of all the blokes. So they wouldn't let him go down a coal mine. So instead he took up roofing.
You serious?
Yeah.
So he became a roofer?
Yeah, he became a roofer. He did that for a fair while, but then he had a couple of accidents on roofs.
Fell off the roof or something.
Yeah, kept cutting his legs on,
on the tin.
sheet metal. And so, mate, but he's a groundsman now up in the Hunter Valley.
Because, you and your family, I mean, you and Joey have blues, but the rest of your family, your mum and dad and your missus and your kids, you're a pretty tight unit. I mean, it's something that's always struck me. The Johns family is tight. I mean, you bag the shit out of your dad in a joking sense, like it's more for your comedy.
Yep.
But nonetheless, I mean, I saw a photograph the other day. I think it was one of your Instagram feeds, but where it was, I think it was your mum and dad. It was around a Christmas tree. It was your mum and the dad and your two boys and you and Trish. And I thought, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that a person of your, stature here in New South Wales or Australia is prepared to put that up at Christmas time. Not many people do that.
Yeah. We are a close family. And I tell you, what sort of adds to it, Mark, is, of course, mum and dad had me so young, there's not a huge age
not
gap.
A massive gap.
No, and because I had my two boys sort of early to mid-20s, there's not a huge gap between Nan and Pop and my boys.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so that sort of binds everything nice and tight.
Yeah, that's funny. That's the same sort of in my family. So like I must be around, your dad must be around my age. It's like 70. Would he be about 70?
Let me think. How old? Yeah,
70. Okay.
Yep.
So, and I'm sort of like that with my older son to some extent. And then I'm similar to that with my dad. And when I look around at my family, I think to myself, I want to end up like my father at his age, be able to see my son, my grandsons, blah, 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 great-grandsons one day. Do you ever think about that sort of stuff for yourself?
Yeah, I do, Mark. I tell you, Mark, and you used to come in Triple M quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like breakfast radio took a big toll on me.
That's like coal mines. That's getting up early. What time do you start? Or leave home?
Early doors in the first few years. I'd wake up at 3:45 and get in there about, rush around, shower, clean the teeth, all that sort of stuff. Get in there about 4:30 and on air at 6. And then you sort of early doors, we'd sort of hang around there for a couple of hours afterwards, do pre-records for the next day, meetings, etc. Later on, when I started hitting the wall, Mark, like I'd be climbing out of bed at 5:10, right? Having a shower. I could time it to the minute that I'd walk into the studio.
No wasting any time.
No wasting any time. And as soon as it finished, I had to get out of there. I just hit the wall. My last 12 months, I got pneumonia twice.
Oh, really?
But I just knew there was something. I thought there was something not right, and I went and got a heart check. Heart was fine. I said, no, strong, not a drama. I was walking with Joe. I said, something's not right. I just feel like I'm teetering. I went and got a blood test, and my cholesterol was through the roof. And there's high cholesterol in our family. I remember Dad, when he got pancreatitis, they went and did a test on the old man, and they said that it was a phenomenon that he was still alive. And he said that the doctor said to the old man, "Do you drink much?"
Well, I got pancreatitis, probably.
He goes, "Oh, only 1 or 2 a day." And the doctor said, "It's okay." He said, "Well, he would be the truth serum later on." And but yeah, so high cholesterol runs in the family, as well as having a good time, having a drink, and with Triple M. If you're doing those breakfast radio, Mark, if you're burning the candle at both ends, you're going to hit the wall really quick. And for me, it just my lifestyle ended up deteriorating. You're wired all the time. You're jet lagged all the time. You're eating the wrong stuff. You're probably drinking too much. And I had 12 months still to run on my contract at Triple M, but I had to knock it on the head.
So, because that was with MG Gus, and at one stage there was Stewie McGill.
Yep.
I think who replaced Stewie? McGus did.
I replaced Stewie.
You replaced Stewie.
We had Pagey as well.
Okay, but you were never there with Stewie McGill?
No, I wasn't.
So you come in to take Stewie McGill out?
Yes.
Because I used to go on the show in those days when when Stewie was there. And then I just remember one of the things that used to happen a lot is that there was always a social environment around it.
Mm-hmm.
It was very social. And that's sort of part of the gig, like, because you're always hanging out with these guys who are good dudes. And when you say that you started to run, like got burnt out effectively, do you think that happened to MG and also happened to Gussie? Do you think they got into the same position?
I think at times you do. MG left breakfast for quite a while. He's gone back now, but
he went to afternoons and he's come back to breakfast.
Gone back to breakfast.
Yeah.
But I think there's arrangements there to make things lighten the load.
Yeah.
A lot. I think with Gus, I think with all of us, with Pagey, you hit the wall. It's too much, and particularly we were really social too.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that show, they were amazed in there at Triple M. They said, "We can't believe we've got a breakfast show here where everybody gets on, everyone likes each other, and it's sustained for so long." And I think the reason, Mark, is, and you'd have seen it with The Apprentice, and we see it with a lot of reality shows, is the people who play professional sport, professional team sport, learn to suppress their own needs for the betterment of the team. You see that's why Sammy Burgess was so good in SAS. You learn to coexist with people around you, and just get on with the job. And that was the case with the grill team at Triple M. And we go away together, we drink together, have a great time. Every time we went away, we had the time of our life. It was fantastic.
I used to think to myself when I went in there, though, I'd only go in there for a short 5 minutes for me, even that, not even that. And I used to think, this is really intense. Now, people listening on the radio don't know, but it is quite an intense environment. Like you got to think about am I going to be funny? How am I going to make this particular item that it's been the production team has given to you to talk about? How I'm going to make that interesting? And there's an intensity. Then there's an intensity between each of the three of you too, because it was nearly competitive. Or the four of you, Paige didn't do much. He just sat there putting people on and off. But the three of you, it's very intense. And football teams are very intense. Football environments are really intense between. In a team sense, that intensity, I reckon you're probably the most intense out of all those people in that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean bad in a bad way, but you're on.
Yes,
you're on for the moment the lights go on, the green light comes on, and you're on, and you don't stop until 9 a.m. whatever time the show stops. And is that a trait in Matthew Johns in everything you do?
It was a trait that I had to develop through my rugby league career, Mark. And what it is, I've only just let go of that trait, or been to have the discipline to let go of that trait.
Or to acknowledge it first.
Yeah, to acknowledge it, and then being able to move on from it. It was part of me that, like, even up until 5-6 years ago, I'd be ready to do a Fox show, which I don't get nervous about, but I'd find myself the day of being really irritable. Tricia would go, Jesus, what the fuck, And I said, I don't know. I said, it's just what happens when I'm about to go to work. And that was a hangover from my rugby league days, because, Mark, I wasn't a natural player in any way, shape or form. Wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't a Brad Fittler, wasn't a Laurie Daly, wasn't an Anthony Mundine or one of those guys, right? For me to play well and compete against those guys, I had to be on mentally. And so if I went into a game, Mark, I had to be on. If I go out there, there's been at times that I've gone out, and you're going to play in one of the lesser sides in a suburban crowd. There's not a big crowd there. There's not much atmosphere, and I'm not on. I'm one of the worst players on the field. But if I go into a semi-final game playing against someone great, and I'm up emotionally to the point before a game you're almost in tears, then I know I'm going to play good. And that becomes part of the algorithm of your life, and that's
it's like brain training.
Yes, it is.
And well, it's just on that, like, what's your process? Because, obviously you do well in everything you do now. You've got a million shows on, you've done a million different things. You've been different characters, Reg Reagan, et cetera. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yep.
What is the process that Matthew Johns goes through to get himself on?
Well, Mark, I'm an over-preparer at everything.
Which means what?
So, okay, this is nice to come in here today because I'm just reacting off you.
Yep.
If I'm you and I'm doing this interview, then I'm preparing for almost a 4-hour interview, because I like to be in control of what I'm doing. Oftentimes I find with radio, when I do one show a week with SEN, and as opposed to Triple M where it was 3 or 4 minutes song, 3 or 4 minutes, ad break. You get a little breather. In this platform I'm doing, it's 15 minutes, straight talk, and it's different subjects all the
In
time.
terms of SEN.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, there's nothing more frightening or terrifying when you get to about the 8th minute.
A dull spot.
You hit 7 minutes to go and you're going, fuck it, we're out of juice here. Where we're going to go. So it's, you got a 15-minute break and I'm planning for 25 minutes in case, or I'm interviewing someone, and, mate, can you tell us at that time? Oh, I don't really want to talk about it. Oh,
where do I go from here?
Yeah, where do I go from here? And suddenly you're planning one, could be when I do a podcast with someone, planning a 1 hour interview, suddenly 25 minutes, I'm 3/4 of the way through all my questions, and you go, mate, this is going to be bad. That terrifies me. So I'm an over preparer all the time, and that even now, with I'll talk to my producer as far as the Fox shows Thursday and a Sunday. Now we'll put the show together through the week, and I know the show inside out. But what he'll do is on the day of, he'll send me the written version of what we put together. But I don't trust that on the paper. I'd look and I don't trust typed words. For me, I have to take that away totally and rewrite it myself. Because when I do that, that embeds in my brain. And then through the show, I don't need to look at it as much. Or through the show, Hindy can go down a rabbit hole, or Fletch can go down a rabbit hole, or Gordy. And I know in my brain how to bring it back.
This is like the Sunday night show, for example.
Yeah, Sunday night.
Yeah. But what about for Cooper Cronk? Because I'll be honest, I love that show. To me, I said to Ravs the other day when he was sitting there, I said, mate, for me, that's the best show on television when it comes to footy. It's the best analysis of footy for me. There is. And it's the combination of you and Cooper Cronk's sort of strategic thinking as a more recent player, more modern player in the modern game. Do you have to prepare for that, or is this running off Coops?
That's the toughest prep for me every week. I've got to watch every game, Mark, and oftentimes if I'm watching, I've had a couple of beers, I've got to go back the next day and watch it again.
Because you didn't pick up everything.
Didn't pick up everything.
So you'd be sitting there watching the game, taking notes?
Yep, the whole time.
Every game?
Yep, and I recount, again, I come back to the fact that through my rugby league career, in my career, I wasn't a great player. I wasn't Andrew Johns, I wasn't Brad Fittler. So for me...
You mean in terms of natural talent?
Natural talent. But so for me... It had to be using your brain, intelligence, having a roadmap in your brain of where the game's going to go and how to counter that, nuances of ball playing, the little science.
Proper analytics.
Proper analytics. So I'll sit and watch a game and I'll jot a note down. I might watch, Reece Walsh do something, or Adam Reynolds go up and play at the back to Reece Walsh. Suddenly it sparks into my brain from stuff that I was taught, stuff that I learnt. And so we take that into the podcast.
Is Cooper a natural, Cooper Cronk, that is natural talent?
No, I worked with Cooper when he was a young bloke, right? So we got a good relationship. Cooper, if we go back, going into at the end of 2005, Melbourne Storm were in a bidding war with Manly for Matt Orford.
Yep, I remember
and
that.
Finally, just went up, as it does with rugby league, goes up to silly money, and something's got to give. And Melbourne went, we're out. And they went, okay, what are we going to do? We haven't got a halfback. And they said, we've got this young utility bloke. We'll give him a go. And they rung me and said, would you coach him just on playing the halves? I said, yeah, good as gold. So he'd come and stay at my place, and we'd work out stuff like that. And Mark, when and this is, just really highlights the work ethic of Cooper. Because when you first come to the house, right, and we go down the park, and there used to be drills, I'd lay stuff out just to work out what type of player someone was. Is he pass-centric? Is he run-centric? What's his dynamic? Is he good footwork? Hasn't he? All those. And the drill I put out for Cooper, I went away and I rang Craig Bellamy and said, he's Jeff Tuvey. He's robust. He's tough. He's going to be very good at taking on the big blokes in and around the middle and pinballing. And I can see he's an intelligent bloke, but it's going to take time. You're going to have to adjust the game plan around his own limitations where he sits at the moment. But bit by bit, year by year, he's just extended to the point towards the end. He's probably one of the greatest analytical halfbacks we've seen, and one of the best ball players and one of the best organisers. Mark, that was a million miles away from what he was originally at the end of 2005.
So do you put that down to like proper intelligence? And I don't mean anybody else who's not that way is not intelligent, but I mean proper intellect in terms of building up analytics around what works and what doesn't work through observation, and then through execution by trying stuff and failing. You know, do you put that down to that for someone like Cooper Cronk? Because I remember when he played for us when we won the grand final, we had a broken shoulder. He was like an on-field coach. I mean, everyone says, well, he probably didn't do much, but that's bullshit. Like, he was there inspiring them, and, probably talking to Kiri in the background, like telling Luke what to do. But he was like an on-field coach.
Yes.
And I remember when we won the 2002, Freddie was an on-field coach.
Yep.
Great teams always have an on-field coach.
Yep.
I don't care. Whoever wins this grand final this year in 2023 will have an on-field coach. It could be Nathan Cleary.
Yeah.
You know,
Adam Reynolds.
Yeah. Again.
That's it.
Great teams win. And you know much more about footy than I do, but great teams always win with on-field coaches.
Halfbacks, such an essential. You can have the best pack in the world, but it's like having a V12 engine with no steering wheel. You know, like a fisherman without a rod. You know, they're the ones who make it happen. And
So, like, just in terms of someone like Cooper Cronk, would you say he's one of the best strategists and tactician that's ever come out of football?
Yep. Cooper's got a higher intelligence because he's passed through, I reckon, that sphere. I think there's sometimes there's a sweet spot with players. So you get blokes like, and you know, you see with business and life with some blokes. Some blokes are just fantastically naive. Fuck it. I'll just get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Instinct.
And you ask certain blokes and you say, why'd you do that? I don't know, I just did it. It's just natural talent.
Like,
right?
just instinct.
Instinct.
Yeah.
But then you get the blokes who are slightly more intelligent, right? And they go away and right. And for them, I think with intelligence comes over-analysis. So if I would do something with Cooper and I'd get there, and I've worked with other halves before, and you'll say, mate, why don't you give this a go? And they'll do it once and I go, beautiful, it's part of their repertoire. With Cooper, you give him that theory and you go and do a bit of practical stuff with it. He goes, that's interesting. Then he'll take it away, try it, and come back and ask a question, take it away again, come back, take it away again. It takes a long time for that to be part of for him to really put in as part of his game and to believe in it. Right? It takes him a lot longer than most people. But he passes all through that. And, you look at the length of his career, that enabled him to gather all this information, believe in it, put his own twist on it. And then those last 3 years he played, I think he won 3 comps in a row at the end of his career.
Yeah.
You know, that was the reward for all that heartache and all that pain in the ass stuff he had to do. Like, for him, most of his career, it would have been really hard work being Cooper Cronk on himself. You know, never being able to be settled, never being able to have an off day, never being able to switch off, all that sort of stuff. And I see that with Cooper now, with his TV stuff. He's always sort of watch him when we're about to do stuff and he, switches on and can flick the switch. I've gone sort of past all that now, but he's very much still in that player mindset.
So I'd be interested to hear what your view on this is, Matty, because I mean, for me, I see you as one of the great analysts for Rugby League 2, and alongside Cooper Cronk. I want to ask you this. Cooper Cronk, Andrew Johns. Andrew Johns, instinct, talent, could pretty much do anything he wanted to do, banana kicks, kick, run, whatever. Yep. Cooper, as you said, had to work on it, but more a strategist.
Yep.
A game manager. And pretty much an on-field coach.
Yep.
If you were picking a team today, and I don't want you, this is not about bagging either one, but what would you say over a 10-year period would be the better player to have in your team? At halfback.
Well, the air conditioner and the heater.
Yeah. So which one's the air conditioner, one's the heater?
Yeah.
I know which one's heating you up at the moment. But that's a sort of an interesting thing. If I'm a coach, if I'm Trent Robinson and I'm trying to find the dude I want to have in my halfback position, and I've got Sammy Walker at the moment, who's a great instinctive player. Like he looks like he's playing in the park with his brothers or uncles every time he plays. Like it's beautiful to watch. But
Wayne Bennett would prefer Andrew Johns. Trent Robinson would prefer Cooper Cronk.
Right. So it comes back to the coach then.
I think it does. What they're looking for. This is why, like Kevin Walters, like Adam Reynolds is so important to Kevy. Kevy was a really intelligent player, and and he's an intelligent, he's really underrated coach, and it's showing that now.
Well, no, because he was before underrated. But
Yeah, because he's a bloke. Is sort of happy-go-lucky and joke. People sort of think that's the real Kevy. Where I'd imagine he'd be a real chameleon behind the scenes, very switched on. And at the start of the year, when Saul and Cobbo come out and said, "Oh, mate, Kevy," and really Renault's more of the coach. Well, that's a rap on Kevy. The fact that Kevy hasn't imposed himself on the team and tried to, a lot of coaches get there and they're just trying to show how smart they are all the time and trying to almost put the players in a box and put them in the corner, that teacher-student thing, where it was obvious by Saul and Cobbo's remark that Kevy's brought Adam Reynolds in and pushed him to the front because at the end of the day, he's the bloke that's got to lead them around. He's the on-field coach. And so I would say a lot of times with Kevy and Adam Reynolds, they're in cahoots, but a lot of times Kevy will go to Adam Reynolds and say, "Hey, listen, I need you to do this and tell the boys this." So, yeah, different coaches want different players.
Has the game evolved, though, so therefore it's more mandatory to have, a good on-field manager?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, without a doubt. Like if Cooper and Andrew played alongside each other, it would work better if you put Cooper in the 7 and Joey in the 6 because Joey is a multi-dimensional player, right? Early to midway through Joey's career, he would do something, just get the ball and bang, take a guy on. Mate, why would you do that? I don't know, I just fucking looked up and the bloke looked a little tired and I just ran at him. With Cooper Cronk, why'd you do that? Oh, Matty, what happened, right? I had a look and the ruck went forward. And I thought if I can just do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say
he laid it out.
Laid it out. Andrew, at the back end of his career, started to become a lot more of that, right? Joey used to set little points on the field and set up his pet play. So he became that player. And at that point in his career, he could do either. So if Andrew, if you put Cooper Cronk and Andrew in a team, if you gave Andrew the 7 and you gave Cooper the 6, I think in essence of what we used to view as 7 and a 6, a half and a 5/8, I think Cooper would be a little bit lost. He'd be going, I want to control this. Where Andrew, he'd see Cooper going, right, I'm going to do this, and Joey would say, sweet, I'm just going to sit back and watch and just come in when I want.
How is it? And footy players for a long time. How is it that blokes like, I remember Freddie, always looked like he had all the time in the world. Darren Lockyer always looked like he had all the time in the world when he had the ball. Munster today always looked like all the time in the world. It's like they slow time down on the field. What is that? I mean, I watch these games. I think tackle him. It feels like everybody's just. Is it because the opposition is waiting for them to do something because they have such high respect for them? Or what is it?
I think that's a part of the reason. A lot of those really great players got great hands. Earlier to catch the ball, like the early catch as opposed to catching it there makes a big difference. More time with the ball in your hands.
They fuck around with it. It's sort of like
teams go, fuck, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Where they position themselves, not too narrow on the ruck, so the defence can up and in them, just a couple of steps wider, so the defence has got a hold. Formations they put around them, all those things, and as you said, it's reputation. They get the ball and we go, it's particularly younger defenders.
Yeah.
They're standing there and they're watching what they're doing, a little bit intimidated, the defence line.
I can't remember now, but did you play in the 98 Origin?
Was that first and third game?
Did you? Was that under who was your coach?
Tommy.
So that was my first year of sponsorship.
Yep.
So you play. I'll never forget the day. Tommy said to me right at the beginning of the sponsorship. He said, "Look, is there anything you want me to do, Mark? This is my first sponsorship ever." I said, "Well, mate, just don't bring the game to disrepute." And the very first, so you're in the first crew that got selected, because it was Super League War was on, and. He the next day he said, no worries, mate. 100%. I understand that. The next day I picked up the newspaper. It was a Saturday morning. He must have taken you guys out somewhere because there was a photograph of him in the Bourbon and Beefsteak bar with a cigarette and a drink in the hand, a cigarette in that there and a drink there, and his hand up across some bloke's throat against the wall in the Bourbon and Beefsteak bar. And it was a front page or back page of the Daily Telegraph, whatever it was called those days. And what was it like working being in the same team as Tommy?
It was awesome. Yeah, Tommy. The first time I come across Tommy was 1981. My dad was coaching Cessnock. Warren Ryan was coaching Newtown, and Newtown and Cessnock formed a sister club organisation arrangement. And Cessnock would travel down to Hanson Park, do some training sessions, and then they played a trial game where Newtown came up and played Cessnock. I've actually got the team sheet still here. The old man gave it. He goes, mate, I tell you what I found. Have a look at this. Is that any interest to you? I said, fucking give it here. Yeah. So, yeah, I remember they played the trial game. Newtown beat us. It's fun. It shows you the strength of country rugby league back in those days, those Cessnock sides. They won. They went on to make their grand final that year, Newtown. I think they beat Cessnock something like 12-5. Really tough, hard-fought game. But then the day after, Cessnock's Nick Politis, you might say, was Murray Tyrrell, the winemaker. Dad had a great relationship with Murray. They go talent spotting together. Murray put a barbecue on for all the Cessnock and Newtown blokes. And I remember standing there, right, as a young kid, I'd have been about 9 or 10, and just listened to Tommy just rattle through all these stories. And every time he started a story, he turned to me and said, listen, don't tell your fucking mother this story, okay?
Is that the days of Barry Wood and Chickamore and all those guys?
I think, yeah, Chickamore was there. I remember on the team sheet. The reserve grade side for Newtown that night had a bloke called Chicka Ferguson on the wing.
Wow.
Phil Gould in the
Gus.
back row. Yep. First grade side, Kenny Wilson, Tom Radonicus, Graham O'Grady, Phil Sigsworth.
Wow.
Ray Blacklock, Nathan Blacklock's old man, son of Jeff Bugden, on and on. But then, to be coached by Tommy, it was great fun. And that night we went out the Bourbon and Beefsteak.
Yeah, you remember it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what happened, Mark. So we're about to go out, right? Anyway, Queensland straight away, as opposed to staying in Queensland and coming down a few days before the game, they just did the whole camp in Sydney. And word had gone out that they're having their bonding night on the town as well. And Tommy had a really close relationship with all those Ipswich blokes, the Walters brothers, and Alfie, of course. Him and Alfie were like father-son. So he said, listen, fuck, boys, if these idiots are out on the town, if I see any of you blokes talking to any of them, you sack straight away. Well, fuck, hang on, okay, this will be interesting. Sure enough, at midnight we go to the Bourbon Beefsteak. Who walks in? The whole Queensland side.
It was probably the only joint open after midnight.
True. And they're coming up and they're trying to have a chat. And we're, I'm talking. Remember, Gordy's trying to talk to me, and I'm sort of got my beer and I'm looking the other way, and he's going, what's the fucking matter with you? And of course, Alfie and Kev picked up on it. They're going, come on, Tommy, come on, mate. And they're pulling his ears and all that. And I remember he turned around grabbing one of them.
Oh, that was a photo.
Yeah, that was it. So, yeah, he was a lot of fun, Tom.
Isn't it funny how footy is like what the expectations of football teams today have changed so much from back then. I mean, even just the bonding environments back in '98. And I get it. It's a long time ago, but the way players are themselves, like as individuals, for a start, they're much more professional.
Yep.
Coaches are much more professional. And Freddie was, like he didn't have a older boy career. He was a great footballer, but he did messed up a few times. I remember, like, I remember one time there, I was a sponsor of the Australian side and Wizard, and I remember he was supposed to turn up to a memorial, like an Australian memorial, like for soldiers or something, and the New Zealand team were there, and Freddie didn't make it, and he'd been out in the drink the night before, and he got sacked as the Australian coach. But he now today is like he's a beacon of respectability.
Yep.
Freddie doesn't even drink.
Yep.
He very rarely has a drink now.
Yep.
And he's got 2 great kids, and he's got his wonderful wife. And is it just a matter of growing up, or for you guys as rugby league players, or is it something more than that? Have you evolved as individuals around the game as well as the game has evolved?
Yeah, I think as the game naturally as you get older, you sort of get there, and like I'll watch a movie, and most of the time when I was with Trish, she goes, I've never seen you cry. And now every time we put a movie on, particularly if something happens with the dog in the movie, I'm crying. She goes, oh, mate, she goes, you just got too much estrogen in your body these days. And but yeah, I think it's just naturally aged, but the game's evolved, Mark. we're talking about, when you talk about 95, 96, even up to 98, the game has just gone fully professional. It's still coming out of the days where you got the bloke who's working, like a mate of mine, Steve Crow, right, who played quite a bit of first grade, was part of the 97 grand final. Mate, he debuted in 91, and it wasn't until, I would say, 97, 98, even when he won the grand final, mate, he was still working dog watch in the coal mines.
Wow.
So he would play a game, mate. He'd play a game on a Sunday. We'd go to the pub. He'd have a few beers. And then one of the boys would drive him to the mine, and he'd do his shift down the coal mine, and then, come out and, work till 8 o'clock in the morning, and then go and do the rehab session, go home and sleep, and then just repeat it all week, training, back in the coal mine. And so those days of blokes being labourers and stuff like that, then you go and play the game. It was really semi-professional. And, in our generation that played, there was still the hangover from that, where these days, like I remember hearing once about the NFL, they said the demise of the American track and field team, the male track and field team, the reason America wasn't winning gold medals in the 200 and the 400 was because of NFL. Is that if you could run that quick and you're a good athlete in college, why would you go into the Olympics when you can earn $20 million a year playing NFL? Well, I actually start to think, I'm seeing that now with the NRL. Like, these blokes are Olympic athletes. They're that good. Some are better than Olympic athletes. They're incredible athletes. And so, to be that and to compete against that, you just can't be burning the candle at both ends like we did.
So, but does that mean someone like you, who's a commentator and an analyst when it comes to the game, you have to evolve too? I mean, like Cooper Cronk, he's a fully a straighty 180. Like,
Yep.
He's a straightest bloke.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean that in a bad way. Like,
No, he's very disciplined.
In everything he does.
Yep.
In everything he does. And he's a product of the modern game. And then see someone like the Johns brothers, you guys were larrikins. But you're still there, and Andrew is too, but you're still there. You're doing all sorts of shows.
Yeah.
Have you made a conscious change to your lifestyle and the conscious change to what you do in order to keep up with the way the game's evolved?
For me, it takes a lot of discipline to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Makes it.
Yeah.
So
it's conscious.
Yeah. So I have, I for what I do now is probably no different to when I was playing to a certain extent. Is that there's parts of me that won't change, and I don't want to change. I still love going out. Like, I still love having a good time. Like, Saturday, I said to, I was talking on the family podcast on yesterday, and I said, last Saturday was one of the best days I've had in the last decade. So I jump on a bus, go up to Neutral Bay, go to the Oaks. I catch up with Mark Fantasy and Andrew Webster at the Journal. So we get up there about 12:30, and we're having a beer. 3 o'clock, I go, boys, I'm going to head back into Manly. I'm going to watch the Warriors game there. Okay. So I get back on the bus, go to Manly, put the earbuds in, right, listen to music I like, and I'm just bar hopping. I'm going from pub to pub, place to place, and I'm sitting, and watching the football and meeting nice people, having a ball of a time. Then I get a call. And they said, a young bloke I used to coach, he said, "Oh, mate, the coach, the side I'm coaching, got their presentation night, come over." So went over there, was all the young blokes there having a beer and having a good time. They go pretty hard, those young local footballers. But, 11:30, 12 o'clock, I'm out and going to bed. That's a pretty good session, but I've had just a great time. And I don't want to forgo that, but there's a balance, and I've got to be, on top of that, I want to be training these days, want to be eating the right things, want to be able to bounce back. But more importantly for me is not foregoing work ethic, that the work side of things and my responsibilities suffer because of it.
Yeah, people say to me, Matty Johns must be earning so much money. He's doing so many broadcasting things. I mean, you're on SEN, you're on Fox. I mean, you got all your podcasts. By the way, your family podcast is unreal. I mean, I love it. I mean, it is a bit of a version of Sylvania Waters of 25 years
That's
ago.
very kind. I think it's more like the Osbournes.
Yeah, the Osbournes. That's scary. That is scary. I remember when that show first came to air, the Sylvania Waters. It was the first reality show in Australia, but it's like looking inside your family.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. Like how does that work? Like, who came up with the idea? Was it Trish or your boys, or did you come with the idea?
I tell you what happened was that when COVID hit, we all made adjustments during COVID, and we come out of it, and there's certain things that just changed about our lives and how we thought and did things. And one of which was there was a period there that I was contracted to Fox Sports to do one podcast a week. The problem was for a while there we weren't allowed in the building. So like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, I tell you what, bring all the podcast equipment to me, and I'll do it with the family. I'll fulfill my obligations, my contractual obligations there. And they're like, will it work? And I said, well, it'll work. Don't worry. And that's where it started.
Because they would have been at home as well.
Yeah, we're all at home together.
So just in terms of the family podcast, it was obviously Trish, and then you see Cooper a lot.
Yep.
Jack, you don't see as much.
Yep.
So just tell me the dynamic. How's it working?
Okay, so
who's doing what? Who's in charge of what?
Let's say, for I'm the Irish side of the family.
Yep.
The Irish Well side. So I like a good time, a little loose. I like telling stories. I'm a showman. I'm an attention seeker. I'm like a moth. Turn on the spotlight.
And you're there.
Cooper's like that. He's more like me. Trish is the Italian side of the family, sort of reserved, very strong on her views, doesn't like to take the piss too much, likes, very thoughtful. That's Jack. Yeah. So he's got the Italian genes, and Cooper's got the Irish genes.
Good luck, Cooper.
Yeah. yeah, that's right.
Good luck. But the show works, so the dynamic works, and the dynamic works. Obviously, the Italian genes and the Irish Welsh genes that you have work with you and Trish. Like, you guys have been together for a long time.
Yep.
And I often hear you talk about Trish, like, and sometimes you sort of semi-take the piss about something more about what you've done.
Yep.
But you don't mind telling a story around it. Is that an endemic thing in you? Like, did your father, was he a storyteller? Was your mother a storyteller, or your grandparents? Because that's a pretty big skill, and it's a natural skill.
Yeah.
You love telling stories.
I never looked at my dad as a storyteller until now. I'll get there, and someone will ask him to go on the radio show, like when Cooper does stuff with Colin Jackie O. They got the old man on one day, and I thought, how's he going to handle this? Fine. But mate told a couple of stories, and it was brilliant. It was very, very funny. So yeah, and a lot of times it's for me collating stories. Not forgetting things that have happened in my career and my life and things like that. And it's like anything, Mark. It's like the computer. Someone will say something, and it'll spark something, and you go, oh, I remember now. For me, but I've got to write everything. Like, if I remember a story, I'll jot it down so it stays in my brain. Because that's the other thing about me. Everything is longhand. You should see, like, my desk at home. It's a dog's breakfast.
But you know where everything is.
Hey?
You know where everything is.
Yeah, I know where everything is. It's all paper and pen. Like, I've never owned a computer in my life.
Oh, serious?
I've never sent an email in my life. No. I've never been on. Trish does my Instagram.
Yep.
I've never had a presence on social media, Twitter, any of those things. I like to keep my life really simple, and I say to people, I say to work, if you want to get in touch with me, send me a text, call me, or send an email to Trish.
Have you any idea of how deep your memory is? I mean, because I've actually stood there in various times, and I thought to myself, how's this guy remember this group, this singer? Back in what year? What the words, what the name of the song was? You're aware of that, aren't you?
Yes,
and other people say it,
and I think that's part when I connect things together. When I say, okay, I get the rundown. Okay, I got the rundown off the producer, but then I write it out myself. Once I write something down, once I care about something, Mark, or something interests me, I very, very rarely forget it. So if someone says something about a band or a country or a moment in history, if I've read it and it's piqued a bit of interest in me, then I remember it. It will stay there forever.
Are you a reader?
Yes. Yes.
So let's talk about that. So what does that mean? Like, would you read every day?
To varying degrees. Sometimes, I'll churn through a book. Other times it takes a little bit longer.
When you say a book, you mean a fictional book, or you're talking about a book about something?
I've never. I'm trying to think. I read a fictional book a couple of years ago. It must not have piqued my interest because I can't remember which one it was. But it's always biographies or history. So yeah, that's.
So what interests you then? What are your interests? I mean, we talk about football. What interests Matty Johns outside of that?
That's interesting because you say that because, I've got, and maybe this has got to do with why I like having a good time so much, mate, is that I don't play golf. I play lawn bowls occasionally. I like that because you walk parallel to the clubhouse rather than walk away from it. But I have no great interests. So my interests are relationships with people, have a coffee, enjoy it, travel, and reading. Really, that's the extent of it.
When you say reading,
yeah,
that's. I mean, I'm sort of a little bit similar, but in terms of that, because I don't play golf and all that sort of things either. But for me, reading is critical. Reading for me is learning. I read to learn about something. I've heard you recite historical events. I've heard you recite stuff about when a band was here in Australia, and you'd even know the names of all the individuals. You know the songs that they sang. I heard you say this on Triple M, and I thought to myself, this dude must read stuff that interests him, and then somehow retain it to his memory. And you must do it often. To have that sort of level of knowledge about stuff apart from footy. You must be reading these things purposefully, chasing it.
And maybe that's, might be the fact that, I don't own a computer, Mark, and it's become a necessity to have that, to have all these notes on my desk and everything, but I know exactly where everything is. I know I've, got to be here. I know that I've got to be here at a certain time and all that sort of stuff.
Do you get obsessed with it though, reading it?
Not obsessed. I get there sometimes. If I've got stuff on, Mark, I've got to get it done. If I've got to plan something, I've got to do it straight away because otherwise it just sits on my shoulder like a weight. So I sort of like to get everything and be organised, get on top of it quick. Otherwise it's a burden. Like lately I've been thinking about some other thing I'm going to do in this other podcast, right? And it's just driving me mad to the point that I've got to write a note on my desk. You aren't allowed to think about this podcast until next Monday.
Really?
Yes, to have the discipline to not be thinking about it. Otherwise, I'm driving in the car, an idea comes, I go, Jesus Christ, here we go. I've got to pull to the side of the road and write down a note or two and then keep going. You're on a 15-minute drive somewhere. It takes an hour and a half to fucking get there.
Yeah, totally. So, like, I got to ask you about the elephant in the room. Like, I said about family, Andrew. Mate, what's going on?
Well, we
is it a G up?
No, it's not.
So it's dead set of two brothers having an argument.
Yeah, look, at the moment, we're not even in the same library, let alone the same page. So, it's a little bit, mate. We are different people, and we clash some way, shape, or form biannually.
Twice a year?
Yeah, twice a year.
Yeah.
Some next day, doesn't matter. Other times it prolongs a little bit. It goes a little bit longer.
Is this the longest time you haven't?
Oh, no. We've gone years.
Oh, no bullshit.
Yeah.
You've gone for years not talking to your brother.
Yeah, we've gone for years.
How do you avoid him? Like, I mean, I say, like Christmas time, what happens? You say, g'day, how you going?
Yeah, it'll be, just trying to remember. I remember seeing him once. He's funny. He'll get there. Like it's sort of part of our playing our roles and who we are. And I'll go, oh, here he is. Hello, Joey, how are you, mate? And he'll go, yeah, mate.
He does it. Actually, that is his facial expression. That is his facial expression.
Yeah, mate, not bad. Okay,
but is it? You're the older brother. I mean, is it a matter of the older brother breaking the ice every time? Has that? But this is the thing has gone on, I guess, over the years.
Right. Here's a bit of a story. I reckon. Because through this blue, the blue, I've been sort of taking the piss a little bit. Like an older brother, just sort of poking him a little bit. And
He tumbles.
he gets the shits. He doesn't, and he sort of takes it a lot more serious than I do. I hear through my mates, mate, he's not happy. I was like, oh really? Yeah, okay, no worries. Oh, mate, he reckons he's going to get a job here next time I see him. Fucking hell, really? He must have taken boxing lessons since the last time he had a sting. And he rang me. I was on the Gold Coast, right? I take full responsibility for this, right? I deserve a kick up the ass. And what had happened, I thought, right, wouldn't it be funny if this Sunday night coming up on the show, I booked Jamie Goddard to come on. Of course, famously, Jamie Goddard was the bloke that hit Joey with the big right hand, put about 60 stitches in his mouth or something. It'd be funny. So I rang Jamie Goddard, said, yeah, I'll come on the show. So
this is your Sunday night show, or this is
Sunday night show.
Right.
Joey rang me after he accepted. Joey rang me about an hour later. G'day, mate. How you going? Oh, mate. How you going, little brother? Yeah, good. Do you want to catch up? I said, no, I don't. He said, why is that? I said, I'm on the Gold Coast. But when we get back to Sydney, we'll catch up. Sweet. So Joey's reached out. Unfortunately, when he watched the Sunday night show,
filthy. He knew you just screwing with him.
Yeah. And because through the show, I thought it was pretty funny. Through the show, we said to Jamie Goddard, listen, the elephant in the room is going to be the Joey thing. And the fact that me and Joey are blue and people are going, oh, here we go. But I said, let's not mention it until the last frame in the show. So all the way through it, we're asking the questions like, do you do any boxing since you were a kid, when you were a young bloke? And he'd play along. Oh, a little bit, but do you have many blues in your rugby league career? Oh, none that really come to mind. Oh yeah. Then we did a break, a little retro rewind. Let's go and have a look at some of the greatest fights in Origin history. And of course, it was the only one we didn't put in. Then it was like, righto, it's time. Let's address the elephant in the room. Why did you leave the Gold Coast, at that time? So everyone, anyway, as the show, well, that's all we got time for. And Fletcher goes, hang on a second. And we showed it. And I think Joey thought, cheeky bastard. So.
Did you get a text?
I got a text.
Was he filthy?
He wasn't.
So would it be fair to say, though, because you don't have to like your brother all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to like anyone in your family all the time.
No.
You love them.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong, you're the first person there. But
you
don't have to like them. There's no rule book that says that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And everybody would be, oh, they're brothers. But shit like that happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
But I know so many people. Like, even in my own family, two of my sons, they don't necessarily like each other that much. But I know, they love each other. And at the end of the day, if they don't, they're going to get a clip from me anyway. I don't give a fuck how old they are.
Yep.
They will definitely get a clip from their father.
Yep.
But like at the end of the day, they're just different personalities.
Yeah, it's different.
And you and Joey are different.
And we have, like, mate, like we growing up, we slept in the same room, Joey was on the bottom bunk, I was on the top bunk. Then we went to the same school, of course. And then we have the same profession, this high profile profession. We're playing, first grade NRL. Then, in a town like Newcastle, which is rugby league crazy. And then we win this amazing competition. We play for New South Wales together, for Australia together. Like, I think we're just fucking sick of each other.
Well, I guess that sort of thing can happen too. So the grand final is coming up.
Yep.
Let's not try and predict who's going to win the grand final, because both any side can win it on the day, and of course there's always injuries to be looking at, etc. So, but let's just look back on the season that's just passed and everything that has built up towards the grand final. How do you rate this year's season as a footy season?
The greatest that I've seen, and
what do you mean by that?
No exaggeration.
Well, what's that mean? In moments, or are we talking about talent, or like what?
I think all those things together. I think the players have never been better, Mark. The game, the way the game has evolved, I think Peter V'landys, the NRL, deserve enormous credit. If we go back to the COVID period, which was wasn't it a bizarre time?
Yeah, totally.
Think about it, fuck, unbelievable,
Yeah.
once in 5 generations or what. But you look at that time, a lot of people made adjustments in their lives, of course, in their professions. And it was interesting the way the NRL did things. Rather than sit on their hands, that little pause in the game allowed the NRL and the Independent Commission, a lot of the great thinkers of the game, to have a look at the game and say, righto, okay, let's have a look at how this game looks. How can we make this better? And they made some big calls. 6 again rule. People were like, "So you fucking sick? You got to be kidding me! It's too big a change. What, a bell's going to go off?" And I was thinking, well, God, this could be a disaster. The reduction of scrums. They stop fucking around with these scrums. They don't mean anything, right? Just turnover and things like that. Well, they've worked brilliantly, in my opinion. What it's done, Mark, it's sped the game up, right? And sped the game up. It's the bias is on attack. It's really important in the game that attack always has the superiority. The moment we allow the defence to catch up to the attack, the product suffers. The very fact that the stars of this season have been Reece Walsh, Sean Johnson, Kalen Ponga of late, all those players, so on, Cleary, shows that it's attack bias, that the game's good because the stars, they're rising to the top. So from that angle, the game has never been better. And Mark, and the interest around the game. The interest around the game has been phenomenal. Mate, record ratings on TV. Mate, we're seeing sold out stadiums everywhere. I mean, look at what is taking place. Has taken place this year in New Zealand is just absolutely incredible. I went to Magic Round, Mark, and I'm again bouncing from bar to bar, and you're meeting people, and it's such a great couple of days. I'm running to people from the South Island of New Zealand. There was about 4 or 5, different groups from Dunedin of all places, which is just rugby union heartland.
Totally.
It was, rugby loos, hari kari, like you just, and they were talking about how good the game is and the interest now in the South Island and the Warriors, and wherever the Warriors have taken a game in New Zealand has been sold out. So it just shows you how good the product is there. The fact that, a few weeks ago we were on the cusp of the Rugby Union World Cup, and they're saying in New Zealand the Warriors are getting all the front page and back page, and the All Blacks have been relegated. Like, when does that ever happen?
And losing games.
That's right.
Especially in rugby union.
Absolutely.
The All Blacks. It seems to me that there's been a whole lot of new characters developed this year in 2023 in the game. Like brand new characters. Now, they were playing, but they're just brand new characters. Like Kalen Pong has become a character for some reason all of a sudden. Maybe because he's come back from, the head injury drama that he had at the beginning of the season, went to Canada and got some stuff done. But he's come back like unbelievable. And what it's done for a place like Newcastle.
Yeah.
Like you say Newcastle Rugby League, man, but it actually holds the community together. It's a big deal. I mean,
Mark,
these characters are arriving everywhere, popping up all over the joint.
Mark, let's go back to the Canberra game, right? I went up 3 or 4 years ago up to Newcastle with Trish to watch the Knights play, and I was alarmed because there's very little atmosphere in the stadium. The crowd were very subdued. It was maybe 13,000, 14,000 people. And I said to Trish, my fear is the last 20 years have been such a disaster for the club. Wooden spoons, disastrous ownerships, all those things. I said, my fear is that the link between the club and the community has been broken and won't be mended. But the back half of this year, that has happened. And those last 3 home games, but 3 of them sold out. And that last one against the Raiders, Dom Young, when he's run down that right touchline, and all the fans in the background was incredible.
That last try scored.
Yeah, unbelievable, Mark. And I got emotional watching it. And the community, the crowd that day, the community got the side home against the Raiders. The alleged bite, Jack Whitening.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, we don't win.
Yeah.
Because the side were playing nervously in front of a home crowd. They're expected to win, and it was eating them up. So you're about 10 minutes after halftime, we're down by 10 points, and we're going nowhere. Suddenly, Tyson Gamble jumps up and says, hang on. the crowd go nuts. The crowd lift emotionally, and the team pick up on that, and they win. And I was watching the game then at full time. I went, mate, the connection's still there, which was for me pretty special.
That's what sort of tribalism does. I mean, that's the best part of tribalism. I mean, I think it's the best part of rugby league. It builds and rebuilds communities. I mean, that's why. I mean, people talk about rugby league all the time. To me, like, it's dying off. I think 2023 has been its biggest year. I think it's been unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I want to ask you one more thing, and we're just in the
Could I
interest
just say, Mark, you mentioned before about characters.
Yeah.
There was a terrible thing happened a little while ago because of all the controversy that had gone on. Is the clubs were terrified of their players having personality. So to have a player who had a little bit of spunk and spark about him was so rare. And like you had media managers hovering over the top of them and not letting him do this and do that. There are so many great characters in the game now. Of course, you've got the Munsters and you've got the Brandon Smiths and those guys. They're just great characters. And we've brought a lot of them on the couch on the Sunday night, and they're just great guys. Like the young Penrith blokes, right? And they cop a bit of stick. Blokes like Jerome Luai. When they came on, they've come in twice on the show, right? Both times when they've left the building, everyone in the building have gone, what great, respectful young blokes they are.
It's funny that, I mean, I think TV's done that. I think the shows, the podcasts, all the stuff that you're doing plus others, the stuff that Den and Kemp does on Bloke, like just, the Hello Sport guys. I mean, they are, maybe it's because we have a great opportunity to actually put the spotlight on these great characters, because they are great characters. And once upon a time, it was just on telly. It was a show. The game was on TV, and that's all you ever saw about a player, other than reading about them, something they might have done wrong on the front page of the telly or something. But generally speaking, I think the characters have probably emerged. They've probably always been characters, but they're probably emerged by virtue of all the platforms that exist today for us to talk to the characters and get to know them.
So true. And their own social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I get amazed sometimes at my joint, like with Cooper, right? It's like a fucking never-ending procession of things being dropped at the door, and I'm going, what, mate? What is this? Why do you need another mattress? Right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, mate, I get on there and I just do a bit of a post on. So young players, I suppose young people, are so aware of their own. I don't like to use the word brand, but their own selves and how to promote their own promotion that's available. Even to the point like our promos on Fox Sports, which like Charlie who does them at Fox Sports, right? Our promos are as good, if not better, than the NFL's in America, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. They're very
Some
good.
of the ones like brilliantly. And last week, me and Charlie were talking about it, and he took the Penrith blokes down under these like dark tunnels in Sydney that he didn't know existed. Mate, someone tipped him off, and had the Panthers standing there in the dark tunnel with their hoodies on, almost like that movie, The Warriors, And Matty Noble walks through and talks, and I said, "Mate, that is so fucking good." And through the year, we've seen all these different ones and players putting them out there. And I said, "Are you shocked by that? Because a decade ago, Mark, you tried to get a player to do any of that." I said, "No, I don't look stupid. Teammates take piss out of it." The players love it these days.
Yeah, they're much more conscious of it.
They're conscious because it promotes them.
I mean, I'm an old dude, but I'm actually enjoying seeing the players do this, and I'm actually enjoying seeing the characters come out of what they do themselves, but also what your shows do and all the other podcasts do for them. Over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of discussion about concussion, and I saw something, more recently with, Robbie O'Davis is on telly, and I just couldn't help but feel for him. And there's a lot of stuff. The concussion is becoming a big deal now.
Huge.
And also whether or not it creates all these other things like CTE and dementia, who knows? But just concussion itself. Do you think that the NRL is doing enough in relation to the concussion protocols and, how to deal with concussion once you get it? Like, for example, let's say, one of your boys gets concussed. How do you treat them? What are you supposed to do with them? Because as a parent, you get worried.
Yeah.
Because we have to deal with this. And this is a problem. We have to deal with it because otherwise parents will stop their kids playing footy and we'll never get the stars of the future. Where do you sit on this stuff?
Mark, I'm actually proud of the game, Heather. The more they find out about, the more we find out about concussion, the more protocols that are put in place. Let's have a look at like your team. Like Joseph Swali'i gets hit at Shark Park. Now, I reckon even a few years ago, people, he'll be right next week. He's not playing.
Yeah.
They said there'll be the NRL said no, he will not be playing.
Yeah.
And we see that you know that's a Jesus, that's a big step forward in the game. Considering, Mark, that you'd wake up in the sheds and you go, oh, get back out there.
I want to go back out.
I've got to go back out because I tell you what, Mark, if you get knocked out and you get taken off and they come off the field at half time and you're up there sort of sitting, I said, what's going on? Why isn't he back out there? When you got knocked out or you sustained even a bad injury, you went back out there because it allowed you to prove to your teammates that you're worthy. It says something about you, where now the protocols protect the players from themselves. And this is the big difference between the NRL and the NFL. Like with Triple M days, I interviewed Dr. Bennett Amalu. Of course, he was the guy who discovered CTE. He was the Nigerian doctor that concussion was based on. And the NFL, mate, they treated him like a pariah. They tried to destroy his reputation, his credibility. They locked him out of the stadiums. So it took the NFL so long to acknowledge when the bleeding obvious was there. Whereas the NRL, the moment we started to get data and feedback, they've made the proper adjustments.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good to hear that, because I sort of set you up a little bit because I'm on the concussion committee for the NRL, and Juniors, Wayne's the chairman of it. And I'll be honest with you, like, you know, we are not only conscious, but we are obsessed with trying to get the best outcomes for players. We brought the 11-day rule in at the beginning of the season. And, you know, we got really concerned because, you know, I'm also on the board of the Roosters. So I kept thinking to myself, well, one of our players gets injured, like you just mentioned, Joseph Swali. He had a third grade concussion, but it got upgraded to 1, which meant he had to stand down for 11 days and he can't play, you know, he can't play the game against Melbourne. So, and then, to some extent, I started worrying about to myself that am I sort of causing a problem for my game, for my own team? Yeah. But I'm on the board. But at the end of the day, that concussion committee that the NRL sits under the NRL is 100. I can tell you now, is 100% about protecting players from concussion. We will do whatever it takes to make sure it's not we're not doing it for the game. We're doing it for players. And and anybody who's ever suffered concussion, which I'm sure you have, you know how important it is. And when you're a parent and you're looking at your kids playing the game like you do now, this is a real worry. And we want to be seen as being one of the best. And when I see someone like Robbie O'Davis, I like, oh my God, like just, you know, his wife is his family's unhappy. And I obviously see Mario. I mean, like, Mario really breaks my heart when I see Mario. And I've talked to Mr. Rebecca, and I see how tough it is for her. It'd be good to see some more stuff get done for past players. But we have to make sure we don't get young players now becoming the same as the past players that we're now experiencing. And we've got to learn from what happens to the NFL. We've got to learn from what the AFL is going through. We've got to get the experts in, and we've got to listen to them, and we've got to stop thinking about the bravado.
Oh, yeah, mate. That's a big one.
And that's what I mean by rugby league's evolved.
Yeah, it has, yes.
It's a proper profession.
Yeah.
And if someone's getting injured, we wanted to play in 3 weeks' time properly, and we don't want them to be injured when the day they walk out of the game.
Yeah.
And I think rugby league has evolved intellectually.
Absolutely.
And to me, it's so important that we have people like you, you know, and your team, you know, and all the shows that you're working on as I remember sort of putting to earlier on, that you've evolved, bringing for me anyway, a great deal of thought and intellect, but you do it in a funny way. Great deal of thought and intellect to the game, sort of builds our reputation. Yeah. And I want to say to you, Matty, like I'm really proud to be sitting here opposite you, and I consider you as a friend, and I just think it's wonderful what you are doing for our game, and you have done for a long time, and you will continue to do. And on top of that, you do it with a great deal of not only humility, but at the same time comedy. Comedy to me is one of the greatest ways to tell the story and get the point across.
Yeah.
And you managed to continually to do that. So on behalf of all the fans of Matty Johns, thanks very much.
Mark, I appreciate it. That's very nice. Thank you, mate.